Chapter 1423. Scared, however, this does not seem to be the wood's spiritual power. There is fire element, water element, and gold element. Lu Shuyang frowned. This is already Sky's spiritual root of 3 attributes. Could it be that I guess it wrong? The person with the power of wood source is not Shiyu, but someone else? Wait. Lu Shuyang suddenly widened his eyes with shock and disbelief. No, more than 3 elements? Then there are spiritual powers from other lines wrapped in Dantian? What element is that? Could it be that Shiyu doesn't have the Sky spiritual root of 3 attributes instead of 4 attributes? Just as Lu Shuyang was thinking, he suddenly felt a chill in his mind that horrified him. The next moment, a powerful force suddenly penetrated his chest and abdomen from behind. Ah! Lu Shuyang let out a miserable howl, rolled over and fell on the grass. Blood gushed out from the hole in his chest, soaking the grass and trees. He also felt that all the spiritual power he had devoured from Shiyu was devoured by the powerful force that penetrated his chest and abdomen. Lu Shuyang was shivering and convulsing in pain. He opened his eyes with difficulty, only to see a tall figure. He rushed to Shiyu quickly and carefully carried the almost unconscious young boy. That posture, that movement, as if he was holding a rare treasure. No one was allowed to snatch it. Lu Shuyang's eyes moved up little by little, and he finally saw the man's face. The handsome facial features were like a god descending from the sky, exuding a contemptuous aura all over his body. He obviously looked like a young man in his 20s, but anyone who saw this face would never forget or ignore it. Nan Gongyu. The only genius in Miluo continent who advances to the nascent soul stage at the age of 20, King of Hell Nan Gongyu. Lu Shuyang clenched his teeth hatefully. A wave of fear and hatred churned in his mind. Today, he was destined to not be able to kill Shiyu, and he would not be able to get the wood source. Moreover, the injury he suffered today would cause permanent damage to him. His cultivation would probably not be able to improve anymore. Nan Gongyu, Shiyu, all these are caused by these 2 people. But I, Lu Shuyang, will not give up. One day, I will make these people pay a painful price. A black stone in his hand was crushed, and Lu Shuyang's figure slowly disappeared into the grass, leaving only bloodstains all over the ground. At this moment, Nan Gongyu's attention was only on Hushi, who had a pale face and was sweating profusely, so he didn't care about Lu Shuyang's life or death. If I was 1 step late, just 1 step, Shier would die at the hands of others. As long as he thought of this possibility, Nan Gongyu felt scared for a while. He held Hushi's hand and was about to inject spiritual power, but Hushi's little hand grabbed his hand instead. A low and weak voice came with great urgency. Jade Fire. Jade Fire Toad. You, hurry up. Go and get the Jade Fire Toad. That is the only way to save you. Hurry up. As Hushi said, Little Golden Dragon jumped out of the void and looked at Nan Gongyu anxiously. King of Hell, come with me quickly, Jade Fire Toad is disappearing. If we don't get there in time, it will be too late. What is so important about Jade Fire Toad now? Nan Gongyu growled. His eyes full of distress and regret. If something happens to you, Shier, what's the use of me getting 10,000 Jade Fire Toad? Chapter 1424. Void Second Advancement. I'm fine. Hushi took a deep breath, gritted her teeth, forced her consciousness not to disappear, and said word by word, I have just advanced. I'm fine. Must get it, Jade Fire Toad. After finishing speaking, Hushi couldn't hold on any longer. As her eyes closed, her divine sense sank into the void completely. At this time, in the void, earth-shaking changes were taking place. The vague voice of Old Man Sumeru could seem to be heard. The 9th layer Heavenly Palace, this is Xian Shao. Following the hatching of Little Egg and the opening of the Ling Shao Palace, the Sumeru void finally ushered in its second advancement. Nan Gongyu looked at Hushi, who had completely fallen asleep, and he suddenly tightened his arms. At this moment, he seemed to feel that he was holding was a warm corpse, but his Shier was moving away from him little by little. The fear in his heart surged up like a tide, drowning him. King of Hell, let's go there quickly. Otherwise it will be too late. Hurry up. Little Golden Dragon was anxious, swearing in his mind. After bringing you to the Jade Fire Toad, I want to go back to the void. Nan Gongyu gritted his teeth. Are you sure Shier is fine? Sure and certain. Little Golden Dragon nodded repeatedly. Even if something happens, it's definitely a good thing. Nan Gongyu finally heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the words. He didn't say any more, and he didn't even find a place to put Hushi down. He just hugged her sideways and rushed toward the direction little golden dragon was pointing at. Hushi felt as if she had been in a coma for a long time, but she also felt that she had just taken a short nap. But no matter how much time she slept, when she woke up, what greeted her was the Sumeru void that had changed completely. Looking around, the ancient rhyme spiritual field where the spiritual plant grew. Although Hushi felt that the ancient rhyme spiritual field was very large before, this time, the area after the expansion of the void was endless. Moreover, the spiritual plants above were all growing too damn well. Especially those precious spiritual plants transplanted from the sealed dragon domain, such as golden Bodhi. It was obviously not the time for Bodhi to bear fruit, but now its branches were full of fruits. What surprised Hushi the most was that the alien poppy that she snatched from the Murong family, that was, the cold-eating flower. Since it was thrown into the void by her, without the nourishment of virgin blood, it had been languid all the time, but now it was full of energy. Hushi approached and touched it, and she found that the yin qi emanating from it was no longer chilling, but a strange aura similar to spiritual power and demonic power. Being touched by Hushi, the cold-eating flower shook its huge flower disc. Its branches and leaves swayed slightly, seeming very happy. Hushi walked to the side of the 9th secluded spirit spring. The area of the spirit spring had grown a lot bigger. Now it was almost half the size of a small pond. There was still a faint layer of mist floating on the spirit spring. She could smell the strong spirit when she was close to the spirit spring. The little purple seed was lying quietly at the bottom of the spring, soundless as if she was dead. With a pain in her heart, Hushi reached out to take out the little purple seed and said in a low voice, "Little purple, thank you for protecting me." The small purple seed was still quiet. The seed looked dull, and the originally abundant demonic power couldn't be felt at all. Just looking at this small seed, one could imagine how much damage little purple suffered and how expensive the price was. Hushi took a deep breath. She channeled her wood spiritual power slowly into the purple seed. Chapter 1425. Angry little bird. The outer layer of the seed gradually became shiny at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a small white spot appeared on the seed as if a bud was about to emerge. Hushi heaved a sigh of relief. She injected wood spiritual power into the seed like it was free. Until the seed could no longer absorb it, she put it back into the 9th secluded spirit spring. Wood spiritual power could give life to all things in the world, and 9th secluded spirit spring was the best nourishing liquid. Although it might take a long time for little purple to recover completely, Hushi didn't mind waiting at all. She believed that their little purple would come back one day. After checking little purple, Hushi was about to visit Sumeru Hall. The little ones were nowhere to be seen, but Hushi could sense that their auras were all in the Sumeru Hall. Moreover, Hushi was also looking forward to the rewards after advancement since the rewards after the first advancement were already abundant. Just as she was walking toward the Sumeru Hall, she heard Little Egg cry out in panic. The sound of chaotic footsteps came from the Sumeru Hall. Then a small object crashed into Hushi's arms. As soon as Little Egg smelled the familiar aura on Hushi, he cried and climbed into Hushi's arms, yelling, "Mom, help! Help!" Wow! Immediately afterward, Little Dumb Cow and Xiao Li also rushed out. Little Dumb Cow still looked dumb, staring straight at Little Egg. Xiao Li had a hint of a smile on her face, and her face was flushed red. Seeing Xiao Li's expression, Hushi knew it was nothing serious, so she couldn't help laughing and said, "What's the matter, Little Egg?" "Woo-hoo, Mom, there is an ugly monster inside. It bullies me. It wants to occupy my nest. Mom, please drive it away." As Little Egg spoke, he stretched out his pink paws and had an aggrieved expression. There were really several red marks on the little paw, which seemed to be pecked by some kind of bird's beak. But, is there a bird in my void? Just as she was thinking, Xiao Qi ran out of Sumeru Hall excitedly when he heard Hushi's voice. Seeing the intact Hushi, he happily went up to rub against her. Hushi smiled and stroked Xiao Qi's soft hair before turning her eyes away. On Xiao Qi's shoulder, there was actually a fiery red bird. Originally, it was glaring at Little Egg while making a chirping sound, but when it saw Hushi looking over, the little bird immediately tilted its head and stared back mercilessly. Hushi's mouth twitched. Why do I feel that this bird's eyes are saying, "You stupid annoying people, why don't you kneel down when you see me?" Little Egg pointed at the little bird angrily and said, "Mother, it's it. It's this bad bird that pecked me. Let's roast it now, okay? Chirp, chirp, chirp. The little red bird jumped into the sky and pecked at Little Egg's head. Wow! Mom, save me! Little Egg threw himself into Hushy's arms. The little red bird dived straight down with an aura as fierce as fire. Hushy frowned slightly, and an ice shield emerged out of nowhere in the sky. Dong! The bird's beak pecked at the ice shield, piercing a big hole on the ice shield, but the little red bird couldn't move forward. Blazing flames radiated from the little red bird, trying to burn the ice shield. But, after a piece of the ice shield was burned, a new ice shield would soon condense. Chapter 1426. Xian Shao Palace Unlock. Little Egg saw the aggrieved look of the little red bird, and he immediately applauded and laughed happily. Yeah, bad bird, that's what you get for pecking me. Mom is the most powerful, and I'm the most beloved baby of Mom. If you dare to bully me again, I will let Mom strip off all your feathers. Chirp chirp chirp. Dead pig, I will peel off your skin. Hee hee, come if you can. Come. Hushy pressed her forehead with a headache, and she asked Xiao Li, "What's the matter with this little bird?" Xiao Li quickly said, "Miss, isn't there an egg in the Sumeru Hall?" Just now the void suddenly changed, and another door opened too. Then this little red bird broke out from that egg. Then, do you know what species this bird is? Xiao Li shook her head in bewilderment. Xiao Li has never seen such a bird in Miluo continent. Then we can only wait for little golden dragon to come back. Speaking of which, Hushy was now more worried about the situation outside, especially what happened to Jade Fire Toad. However, she tried to leave the void several times, but she couldn't weigh. Is this the void's upgrade that hasn't been done yet? Or is she just not letting her out because she doesn't understand all the changes? Hushy walked quickly into Sumeru Hall. She was even more dumbfounded when entering. Sumeru Hall had opened up two palaces, Ling Shao Hall and Xian Shao Hall. However, the palace at this time had changed completely from its previous appearance. The Ling Shao Palace used to be a huge room. Rather than looking like a palace, it was more like a storage room. But now, the Ling Shao Palace had numerous rooms. Each room contained different types of things. The spiritual plants were put together, beastkin meat and bones were put together, magic weapons were put together, and crystal stones were piled together. It was very pleasing to walk in the rooms. Hushy had the illusion of being super rich. The Xian Shao Palace was separated into two sections. One section was a resting place. When Hushy walked into the resting place, she felt indescribably refreshed all over his body. Before she went to bed and meditated, she felt her fatigue all over her body swept away. In addition to the resting place, Xian Shao Palace also had a place for training, a place for pill refining, and even a puppet array. In it, Hushy could improve her spells and swordsmanship by training with puppets. The puppets were made of wood and looked extremely simple, but their strength was terrifying. With Hushy's current strength comparable to nascent soul stage, she couldn't last for 3 minutes under these puppets. In addition to these changes, a part of the general outline given by the old man Sumeru had finally been unlocked. It was just that Hushy was concerned about the outside world now, so she just flipped through it casually. When she saw that wood source was mentioned in the general outline, she didn't read it anymore. Another void upgrade reward was what made Hushy the happiest. That was a new technique, called Circle of Life. It was a mental method specially used for training the wood spiritual root. Endless life means that there is no end, no death, and the highest level of practice can control the life and death of all things in nature. Hushy had been in Miluo continent for so long, and this was her first time seeing a technique about wood's spiritual root. Now that she had just awakened the power of wood source, it was really like timely help for her. Chapter 1427. Raging Fire. After putting away Circle of Life, Hushy tried to leave the void again, but she still couldn't do it. Thinking of Nangong Yu, who was still in the magical beast forest and Jade Fire Toad was being consumed, Hushy became anxious. In the collapsed Toad Jade Palace, a raging flame was burning right now. All human martial artists, including beastkins, were trapped in it. In the flames, human screams could be heard from time to time. With just a touch, such flames could burn all the flesh and bones of a person to ashes. Golden Wolf and the others were caught off guard, and 70% of the martial artists they brought with them turned into wandering spirits with no residue left. In the center of the fire, a red toad was spitting flames in all directions. Wherever the flames went, Even the stones burned. Hot magma gushed out from the cracks on the surface. In the entire Toad Jade Palace, the only ones who were still alive were the Beastkins under the defensive barrier, and a few soul-splitting stage martial artists that Golden Wolf protected with unique magic weapon. However, that was only temporary. Golden Wolf's face was reddened by the flames, and the turtle shell that was tanking in front was making a terrifying crackling sound. Standing behind Golden Wolf, Eldertson, Elder Fay and the others looked panicked and kept shouting, "Help!" A trace of fear also flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. He did not expect that a mere Miluo continent could have such a powerful treasure. That toad-breathing flames is clearly the top treasure of a mortal realm. Jade Fire Toad. If he had seen this Jade Fire Toad on other occasions in the past, Golden Wolf would try to snatch it no matter how. But now, his life was at risk. How could he think about this right now? Things were not going too well on the side of the Beastkin King either. The defensive barrier was burning red and fluctuating. The Beastkin King was holding the barrier while controlling Jade Fire Toad, so he was almost exhausted. The originally gorgeous young face gradually became old. Blood even flowed from the 7 orifices. But after the blood flowed out, it didn't solidify. Instead, it became hotter than magma, burning his skin bit by bit. Faint blue scales appeared on Beastkin King's face and hands, but they were quickly burnt to bloody flesh. The Beastkins in the barrier were already crying so hard. They wanted to rush over to extinguish the flames on the Beastkin King, but they were stopped. Beastkin King's voice was hoarse and nearly shattered, but he was extremely decisive. "No one is allowed to come over. This fire is not something you can bear. Wait until Jade Fire Toad burns them to death. You will leave immediately and go to the side of Heavenly Mulberry Sacred Tree." "King, we won't leave." The little Beastkin cried loudly. "You're our king. We should protect you. How can we leave you and run away?" "King, please don't care about our life and death. Just go on your own." "You!" Beastkin King suddenly raised his voice and hissed, "If you still regard me as king, just listen to me. After I advanced to demi-divine beast, I could have left this plane, but I stay for you. You don't make me regret this decision." "King." The Beastkins couldn't bear it anymore. They wept bitterly and fell to their knees on the ground. Beastkin King closed his eyes and gritted his teeth, channeling all his fundamental life essence into the Jade Fire Toad. Crack, crack. There were louder cracking sounds from the turtle shell in front of Golden Wolf. Chapter 1428. Dumbfounded finally, the turtle shell burst open. The flames swept everyone instantly. A dreadful scream sounded. Except for Elder Fay and the others who had an ice attribute robe that could withstand several seconds, the others were almost instantly melted into ashes by the flames. A fierce light flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. He suddenly soared into the air, rushing straight toward the Jade Fire Toad in midair. Rather than waiting in place to be burned to ashes by the flames, he might as well slash the toad to pieces with all his might. Die! However, before Golden Wolf's blade slashed at Jade Fire Toad, a powerful and terrifying force rushed toward him. Golden Wolf was caught off guard. He was turned upside down in midair and slammed into a broken wall. The flames from above enveloped his face, burned his hair clean, and burned most of the mask and skin on his face. Golden Wolf let out a cry of pain, and he quickly wrapped himself in ice crystals, barely preventing himself from being burned to ashes. He looked up viciously to see who dared to attack him. When he saw the scene before him, he widened his eyes in shock. In the fiery red flames, a slender figure of a man appeared at some point in time. He walked in the Toad Jade Palace, which was as hot as the hell, like he was strolling in his own palace garden. Against the backdrop of the flame light, his handsome face looked extraordinarily majestic and charming. He was like a scourge from hell walking slowly with a cruel smile, or like a condescending god, despising the insignificance of mortals in the flame light. The man was still holding a comatose young boy with both hands. The young boy's entire face was buried in the man's arms. From the way the man carefully guarded him like a treasure, their close relationship could be guessed. Who are you?" Golden Wolf suddenly raised his voice and shouted. "Are you a human or a beastkin?" But the man didn't seem to hear his words at all. He just walked in front of the Jade Fire Toad that was still burning with blazing flames. His slender hand reached out, casually grabbed the flame-breathing toad, and then squeezed it lightly. Poof! Beast King in the enchantment spat out a mouthful of blood. The jade fire toad that was originally under his control seemed to be frozen by something. There was an inexplicable bone-piercing chill transmitted from the link between the jade fire toad and his divine sense. Beast King looked at the man who suddenly appeared in shock, and he asked the same question as Golden Wolf. Who the hell are you? Nangongyu held the jade fire toad in his hand. As he channeled the dark spiritual power, he really felt a blazing warm current enter his meridians from the ruby-like toad. Now the day for the cold poison to trigger was getting closer and closer. His dantian and fundamental essence was slowly feeling the freezing cold of his soul and body. When this warm current entered his body, he really felt much more comfortable. But it was just comfortable. As the warm current disappeared, the cold poison still existed. This was no different from the flame cave. Nangongyu frowned. It seems that if I want to use this jade fire toad to relieve the cold poison, I can only rely on sheer. Anyway, this is what sheer wants. I will just keep it first. When the jade fire toad disappeared, the flames burning everywhere in the Toad Jade Palace and the tumbling magma also disappeared without a trace in an instant. Golden Wolf was dumbfounded watching this scene. Chapter 1429. Someone stronger than you. What level of treasure was Jade Fire Toad? Of course I have a way to collect Jade Fire Toad, but that is when Jade Fire Toad is not breathing flames. But this person not only extinguished the toad's flame with bare hands, but he also grabbed it and put it into the storage ring. How is this possible? Golden Wolf suddenly jumped up from the ground, fixed his eyes on Nangongyu, and suddenly said coldly, "Boy, I don't know who you are. If you are sensible, just obediently hand over the jade fire toad you just took away. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." Nangongyu raised his eyebrows, and his eyes full of irony swept over Golden Wolf's bald forehead and bloody scalp before he said slowly, "Oh? How do you want to be rude to me?" Golden Wolf made a facial gesture to Elder Fei and the others. Elder Fei and Elder Tsin immediately took out their weapons, released their powerful spiritual pressure on their bodies and attacked Nangongyu fiercely. The blue long sword made crackling sparks as it slowly appeared in Nangongyu's palm. This was a fake sealed dragon sword, but it had half the strength of the sealed dragon sword. When Elder Tsin's attack arrived, the sealed dragon sword unsheathed and slashed horizontally. Elder Tsin only saw a blur. He instinctively resisted with his weapon. Clang, it was the sound of weapons clashing. But the next moment, he felt the tearing pain coming rush to his chest and abdomen with a sharp tearing pain. Elder Tsin lowered his head slowly and saw a turquoise long sword penetrating directly through his dantian. Nangongyu withdrew the sealed dragon sword, and looked at Elder Fei with a cold smile. Elder Fei's eyes flashed with fear. He screamed suddenly, "You! It was you! It was you that night!" Before he finished speaking, the sealed dragon sword whistled and flew toward Elder Fei. In mid-air, the long sword turned into an azure dragon, emitted a rumbling dragon roar and pierced through Elder Fei's body. Elder Fei still maintained his frightened expression with a wide-open mouth. He wanted to finish the last sentence, but he never had the chance again. The sealed dragon sword killed Elder Fei, but it continued to fly toward Golden Wolf. Golden Wolf's eyes were gloomy and wary, but not fearful. He had already taken out a golden-red flashing whip. When the sealed dragon sword flew over, the whip swept toward the azure dragon. After a burst of crackling, the dragon returned to the body, then it broke in half. Nangongyu's complexion suddenly turned grim. His hands holding Hushi slightly tightened, and his gaze looked terrifying. Although this sealed dragon sword was fake, it was the first gift Hushi gave him. He cherished it very much and never left it. Now it was cut off by this guy. This man is courting death. Golden Wolf looked at Nangongyu with a sneer and said quietly, "Just a martial artist from the lower realm. How dare you show off in front of me? Today I will let you know what it means that there is always someone stronger than you." Nangongyu took a deep breath and slowly put down the sleeping Hushi. He looked at Little Golden Dragon with a fierce gaze as he said, "Look after Sheer. If anything breaks the inscribed jade slip, I will be back in no time." Little Golden Dragon patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect the boss. Teach that shameless bastard a painful lesson. I have long been displeased with these guys. Better beat that bastard until his mother doesn't even recognize him." Chapter 1430. Who wins? Little Golden Dragon, who was also a beastkin, was infuriated by what they did to these beastkins. He couldn't wait to rush over and tear these scum into pieces. Nan Gongyu ignored Little Golden Dragon's words, but he lowered his head and kissed Hushi's soft cheek before getting up and looking at Golden Wolf. Golden Wolf glanced at the fainted Hushi. Seeing that she was dressed as a young man, he couldn't help but sneered. Why? Is it because we interrupted your intimate moment with your boyfriend, that's why you're so angry? Ha ha ha. The garbage in the lower realm is low life. There are so many women to love, yet you still want to be with men. Before Golden Wolf could finish speaking, Nan Gongyu raised his hand suddenly. With a rumbling sound, the already crumbling Toad Jade Palace collapsed, blocking the sight of the beastkins. Golden Wolf frowned. He was about to ask him what the hell he was doing. Then his eyes widened suddenly. Suddenly, a thick black aura spread out from Nan Gongyu's body like ink poured into the air. The fearful and creepy aura of death made Golden Wolf feel panic and fear for the first time from the human in the lower realm. Then, Golden Wolf woke up abruptly. Staring at the turbulent jet black, he said in shock. This is the spiritual power of the dark element. How can it be? In this world, including the God domain, there are very few people with the spiritual power of the dark element. The only one I know who can use the dark spiritual power is the lofty existence in the God domain. The one I can't even imagine seeing him. However, now in a mere Miluo continent, I unexpectedly meet someone with such a strong dark spiritual power. Is this still a low-level realm? First, someone advanced to the gold core stage perfect stage, and now even the dark spiritual power. What is happening to this realm? A strong sense of foreboding rose in Golden Wolf's heart. He could see that the strength of the young man in front of him was only at the intermediate stage of the soul-splitting stage, slightly worse than his own. However, the dark spiritual power was the nemesis of all other spiritual powers. In a real battle, it was impossible to predict who would win. Golden Wolf glanced around, and the mutilated corpses of Elder Tsen and Elder Fei came into view. Today he had lost enough. He still didn't know how to explain to the Lord when he went back. He must not lose even himself here. Thinking of this, a dark light flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. The golden red whip suddenly swung toward Nan Gongyu viciously. Nan Gongyu had already held a black and slender sword. He blocked the Golden Wolf's attack with a flick of his hand. However, when the crackling sound disappeared and the dust settled, Nan Gongyu saw that Golden Wolf had long since disappeared. He squinted and said with a sneer, "Want to escape? Just try as if you can escape." After speaking, his figure flickered and disappeared in the same place. Hushi, who was still trapped in the void, was very depressed. She tried various methods, but she still couldn't leave the void. She didn't know what the problem was. The few little ones were also worrying. The ancient rhyme spiritual field has become larger, and the spirit spring water has increased, but this also means that the workload of the little ones has increased. The planting and harvesting of the spiritual field were previously in charge by Little Egg and the few little ones. Little Egg was very powerful. He could swipe his paws and harvest the low-level spiritual plants. As for the high-level spiritual plants, he had to be careful so as not to damage the medicinal properties of the spiritual plants. Chapter 1431. Hopeless bird life. However, the little ones also needed cultivation after all. They couldn't all their energy to planting and harvesting spiritual plants. Now that the ancient rhyme spiritual field had gotten so big, should they just leave most of its land wasted? Mother, hurry up. Come here and have a look. Little Egg's doubtful voice suddenly sounded. What is this? Hushi walked over immediately after hearing the words. She saw a strange array in a corner of the ancient rhyme spiritual field. Hushi knew almost nothing about the array, but she could barely recognize that it was an array somewhat similar to the spirit gathering array, but with many more complicated functions. Little Egg, do you know what array this is? Little Egg shook his head. He touched the array with his little paws. Hushi took out a few crystal stones and placed on the array, but there was no reaction at all. Is this array already broken? Hushi frowned. There is no place to put the crystal stone. What is it powered by? Moreover, before the void is upgraded today, I had never seen this array in the ancient rhyme spiritual field before. Chirp, 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 on the shoulder of Shao Qi beside her, the little red bird uttered a few crisp chirps. As soon as Hushi looked up, she saw the little red bird looking at them with contempt. Its expression was filled with indescribably mocking and superior. Little Egg immediately said angrily, "Stinky bird, what are you chirping? Do you know what this array is for?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp, of course I know, but I won't tell you. Dead pig." "Mother, this bird is too bad." Little Egg complained angrily, "It clearly knows what this array is for, but it just won't tell. Let's roast it." "Chirp, chirp, chirp, it's right to roast you, you fat pig. Make you into a roast pig." "Woo-woo, Little Egg doesn't want to be a roast pig. Mother, it bullies Little Egg." Hushi squinted and looked at the red bird coldly. The very cheerful little bird that was jumping around trembled involuntarily when it met Hushi's somewhat indifferent gaze. Hushi reached out and touched the spiritual plants beside, and she said quietly, "You don't seem to know who is the owner of this void? Tell me, what is this array for? Why can't I leave the void now?" "If you don't want to say," Hushi paused, then she said to Xiao-Qi softly, "Xiao-Qi, catch it. Sister will cook you a little red bird." Xiao-Qi's IQ was now much higher. Although he was not very good at speaking, he could tell what Hushi meant right away. Hearing this without even a moment's hesitation, he grabbed the little red bird on his shoulder. "Chirp!" The little red bird screamed, desperately trying to break free. Xiao-Qi didn't seem to feel anything. He smiled and handed the little red bird to Hushi. "Sister, eat. Chirp, 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 bastard, I was so wrong to like you so much. You actually want to eat me. Bastard, bastard. You're all bastards." Hushi took the chirping bird, grabbed its claws, lifted it upside down and brought it upside down before her. Then she asked slowly, "Now can you tell me, what is this array used for?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp. Woo-woo, bad guys, all of you bully me. Even this pretty human brother bullies me. My bird life is hopeless. I don't want to live." Hushi couldn't understand the words of Little Red Bird, but Little Egg could. The little one who couldn't wait to stir up troubles excitedly said, "Mother, it said it doesn't want to live anymore. Let's roast it quickly." Chapter 1432. Purified Spiritual Power. Chirp, 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 chirp. "I'm not, bastard. This is the God-level planting array, which can only be activated with purified wood element and water element spiritual power. Of course, ordinary crystal stones are useless. God-level planting array? What is that?" Little Egg repeated Little Red Bird's words. Hushi frowned and said, "What is purified spiritual power?" She tried to use the spiritual power of the 5 elements just now, but it didn't work at all. "Chirp, chirp, stupid. Of course it is the spiritual power released after learning Circle of Life. It's such a big treasure in Xian Shao Palace. Haven't you taken a good look at its functions?" Hushi was startled. She frowned. "So I can't leave the void now. Is it also because I haven't practiced Circle of Life?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp, of course. The Sumeru void has been upgraded, and you are the owner of the void. If you do not have the ability to control the upgraded void, you will not be able to enter again after you go out. Chirp! Bastard! Can you let me go now?" Hushi let go of Little Red Bird's hand, and Little Red Bird flapped its wings and flew back to Xiao-Qi's shoulder. Xiao-Qi looked back at it a little sluggishly. His eyes were clear and bright. "Chirp! Don't think you look at me like that, I will forgive you for your betrayal just now. You wanted to eat me just now. This is unforgivable." Xiao-Qi suddenly stretched out his finger and poked the bird's head. "Chirp, chirp. Well, for the sake of your initiative, I forgive you. If anyone bullies you in the future, I will protect you." Little Egg put his hands on his hips, pointed at Little Red Bird and said, "Stupid bird, you can stay in this void, but you have to listen to me from now on. Besides, Mother, I'm the boss." "Chirp, chirp, chirp. Bah, you fat pig. No one will listen to you. Let's fight now. Whoever has the strongest spells will be the boss." The little ones were making a fuss, but Hushi ignored them. She took out the Circle of Life and sat cross-legged on the ground. Although the techniques of Circle of Life were wood element techniques, they could also convert the spiritual power of other elements into wood spiritual power. So after channeling spiritual power for one cycle, Hushi only felt that her 5 elements spiritual power had been stabilized and strengthened. She slowly opened her eyes, and half an hour had passed. The practice of the Circle of Life would take longer and longer every cycle. The first cycle only took half an hour, the second cycle at least 1 day, the third cycle took a month, and the ninth cycle couldn't even be calculated with time. The purified wood spiritual power was slowly poured into the God-level planting array. Hashi wanted to see what kind of array didn't need to be activated by spirit stones. In the next moment, the entire void underwent obvious changes. The mature spiritual plants in the ancient rhyme spiritual field disappeared without a trace suddenly. Hashi probed with divine sense and knew that they were all harvested in the Ling Shao Palace's storage room. The seeds that were originally in the storage room were extracted by themselves and thrown into the ancient rhyme spiritual field one by one. There was no sun above the void, but suddenly a scorching sun appeared out of nowhere. The sun shone on the spiritual field, and the planted seeds germinated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The next moment, white rain clouds floated from the sky, covered the sun, and the spiritual rain poured down, watering the spiritual field. Those spiritual grasses that originally grew out of seedlings continued to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye, and bloomed beautiful flowers. Chapter 1433. Leaving void after the rain stopped, the sun came out again. The poisonous bees collected from the elusive forest were happily shuttled among the flowers. Then, after pollination, the flowers begin to wither and produce juicy fruit. Hashi was dumbfounded watching this scene. Even the little ones were jaw-dropping. Even little Red Bird, who seemed contemptuous just now, couldn't help but widened his eyes, making continuous chirps. Although he learned about the God-level planting array from the inherited memory, he never expected it to be so miraculous. In the end, the fruits and ripe herbs were collected into Ling Shao Palace and placed in different categories. The array emitting green light finally lost its radiance and became gray as before. Hashi took a deep breath. The wood spiritual power formed by her circle of life could only sustain 1 round of plant harvesting at most, but this round alone had left her dumbfounded. If circle of life is practiced to the extreme in the future, wouldn't I be able to get thousands of spiritual plants every day? Moreover, the spiritual plants are high quality. Hashi swallowed and forgot this wonderful future. She walked up to Shao Qi, handed over the circle of life to him, and said, "Only people with the wood spiritual root can practice this method. Shao Qi, would you like to try it?" In Shao Qi's case, his dantian was completely wasted, so he was unable to cultivate. But Hashi always felt that this set of circle of life was different. Shao Qi had such a strong wood spiritual power in his body. If he practices this set of circle of life, would he regain the chance to cultivate? Shao Qi took the techniques with a pure smile, leaned close to Hashi, and rubbed against her neck. Hashi touched his soft hair, and she smiled faintly. After practicing circle of life, Hashi tried to leave the void again. This time, she finally succeeded. However, as soon as she left the void and opened her eyes, she heard a cry as if the sky was falling. "King, King! Please don't die. We can't live without you. Dr. Taper, aren't you the best doctor among us? Think of a way to save the king." "What's the situation?" Hashi frowned and looked at the source of the sound. "Why does it sound like someone's parent is dead?" "Boss, you're finally awake." Little Golden Dragon's joyful voice came. Hashi looked around, and all she saw were ruins. She could still smell the smell of burning and blood. And it was a group of beast-kin who cried bitterly. With Hashi's eyesight, she could tell at a glance that this was a group of beastkins. Not only because of the beastkin aura emanating from them, but also the obvious beastkin characteristics such as claws, scales and horns. This group of beastkins was surrounding a man in a red robe, weeping loudly. Their faces were full of despair and sadness. A beastkin who looked like a middle-aged old man was anxiously treating the man in a red robe. As for the man in a red robe, his was in a very bad situation. His face was covered with blood, and his face was covered with light blue scales, but most of these scales were burnt. Hashi scanned roughly with divine sense, and she found that the beastkin's body seemed to be burning with raging flames. The overbearing level of the flames could almost rival the cold poison in Nangong Yu's body. If this burning continued for a few moments, the beastkin's internal organs and soul would be burned completely. It would result in a miserable end. Chapter 1434. Retarded Boss, that's the demi-divine beast, the beastkin at the peak of rank 11. Little Golden Dragon whispered in her ear. How did the peak of rank 11 beastkin end up like this? Hushi raised her eyebrows in surprise and asked with her eyes. A trace of anger appeared in the little golden dragon's eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "Boss, you forgot that in the confinement space, there was originally a teleportation array that was going to send you and the King of Hell out, but that bastard Tongbing suddenly threw something into the teleportation array. It turned out that the thing was the notorious Sanskrit voodoo elusive silk. Most of the Beastkin King's Beastkin aura was sealed. In order to fight against Golden Wolf and the others, Beastkin King had to forcibly activate the Jade Fire Toad. So now that he is backlashed by the flames of Jade Fire Toad, I think he probably can't survive. What a pity. He has cultivated to demi-divine beast." Hushi was startled, and she slightly raised her voice. Then Jade Fire Toad. I remember that it is recorded in the record of everything that Jade Fire Toad is the remnant soul of the fire attribute Toad Beastkin after it failed to survive the tribulation. That had to be at least rank 11. Moreover, to be able to form a remnant soul, it must be at least rank 12. For the remnant soul to be called the real Jade Fire Toad, it needs to be nourished at the junction of yin and yang for thousands of years. In the end, it will become a living spiritual body. As long as Nangong Yu carries it with him all the time, at least for a short period of time, the cold poison will not attack again. But according to Little Egg, this Jade Fire Toad is just a remnant soul, and it has not been nourished by the extreme yin chi. It can be used as a magic weapon to launch powerful attacks, or it can be swallowed as a great tonic, but whether it is attacking or swallowing, it is only one time. Such Jade Fire Toad was actually not the most ideal treatment plan for Hushi. But Jade Fire Toad was too rare, and Nangong Yu's illness couldn't be delayed any longer. So no matter how dangerous the Jade Fire Toad was that had not been nourished, Hushi had to try it. Little Golden Dragon hurriedly said, "Boss, don't worry, King of Hell has already got the Jade Fire Toad, and the extreme yang flame inside has not been exhausted." Hushi breathed a sigh of relief. She was about to ask Little Golden Dragon where did Nangong Yu go. Then the Beastkins suddenly shouted, "It was you! It was you humans who killed the king! I will kill you! I will die with you!" Feng Wan's eyes were red. He stared at Hushi with hatred and rushed toward her recklessly. Little Golden Dragon cursed with an ugly face. "Damn! Are you retarded? Go and look for those who harmed you guys. What does it have to do with us?" Hushi's mouth twitched. She reaffirmed that Little Golden Dragon, who had been with Little Egg for a long time, was really good at cursing. Feng Wan didn't seem to hear it at all. He had lost all reason. His paws, that were stained with blood, swiped toward Hushi fiercely. Hushi just swayed her body lightly to easily dodge the attack. Feng Wan roared angrily, and he still continued to rush toward her. "Since you want to die, then I will fulfill you." Little Golden Dragon let out a cold snort. His figure suddenly grew bigger. A ball of red flame shot out from his mouth toward Feng Wan. At the moment Hushi advanced, several little ones had also undergone obvious changes. Little Golden Dragon had directly advanced to rank 6. The rank 6 of Little Golden Dragon was not at the same level as the rank 6 of the magical beast. As soon as the flame shot out, the beastkins at the side immediately felt threatened. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1435. Suffer for eternity. That was the coercion of the golden flying dragon, a powerhouse above most creatures. Even if he had not advanced to the level of being able to transform, it was not something that ordinary beastkin could match. "Don't!" A clear and anxious girl's voice came from not far away. Then a yellow Yumin bird flew over at lightning speed. It turned into a young girl and stood in front of Feng Wan, begging anxiously, "Don't kill brother Feng Wan, please." Seeing that the flame was about to engulf the girl, the beastkins on the side exclaimed, "Li Yu!" Li Yu closed her eyes in fear, and her small body trembled. However, the expected pain did not come. Hushi just waved her hand lightly, and the flame was blown aside by a gust of wind and hit a broken wall. Li Yu opened her eyes filled with tears, looked at Shi Yu and said lowly, "Thank you, Shi Yu." "Li Yu, why are you stopping me? If it weren't for these hateful humans, how could King be in this state? I want to kill him. I want to tear all human beings to pieces." "Pa!" Li Yu turned around and slapped Feng Yuan hard on the face. Her face seemed to be covered with frost. Feng Yuan, stop making trouble. If you don't want King to die, don't say a word. After finishing speaking, she didn't take another look at Feng Yuan, who was stunned, but she walked quickly to Shi Yu and knelt down. Shi Yu, I beg you to save our king. As long as you can save King, we are willing to pay any price. From now on, no matter what you want us to do, if we refuse, let us be detested by the beast god and suffer for eternity. As soon as Li Yu said this, all the beastkins looked dull. Then they let out cries of surprise. Li Yu, what did you say? He can save King? Is that true? Li Yu, have you been deceived by him? Human beings are cunning and insidious. However, Li Yu didn't seem to hear the words of his fellow beastkins at all. She just looked at Hushi persistently and firmly with tearful eyes. Hushi pursed his lips, glanced at the unconscious and dying beastkin king, and said with deep eyes, I want Jade Fire Toad. If I save your king, he wants to take the Jade Fire Toad from me, then wouldn't I lose more than gain? Before Li Yu could speak, a chubby beastkin said excitedly, This, human doctor, I can assure you on behalf of King. As long as you save King, Jade Fire Toad will be yours. We don't want it. We only want King to be alive. Hushi raised her eyebrows. You give me the Jade Fire Toad on behalf of your king? Li Yu explained, Miracle Healer Shi, that Jade Fire Toad is the remnant soul left by the former beastkin King Fire Toad. Fire Toad is the ancestor of Brother Pang, so Brother Pang can make the decision. Hushi was still pondering, then a rank 9 beastkin also came forward, staring at Hushi with red eyes. We have seen the person who took Jade Fire Toad just now. Although we don't have time to pursue it now, no one can take away treasure from us for no reason. When we calm down, the Beastkin clan will hunt down humans forever. We will not hesitate to let the magical beast army cross the border again, and let the humans plunge into the abyss of misery. Hushi squinted her eyes. Are you threatening me? Chapter 1436. Reborn from the ashes, the rank 9 beastkin fell to his knees in front of Hushi with a thud and said in a trembling voice, I just hope you can save our king. As long as King can survive, you can choose any treasure of our beastkin clan. Little Golden Dragon also whispered, Boss, I can sense the aura of the same kind from that beastkin king. Boss, why don't you save him? The beastkins knelt down one by one, looking at Hushi expectantly. Most beastkins were simple and honest. Since Hushi said she could save the king, they fully believed that their king could really be saved. Hushi walked slowly to the unconscious beastkin king, grabbed his wrist and checked. Her spiritual power that went into beastkin king's body was forced out by a scorching fiery force, but the beastkin's pulse clearly conveyed the condition in his body. I'm right. There was a flash of understanding in Hushi's eyes. The beastkin king was not dead, or in other words, not dead yet. He was using Jade Fire Toad's extreme young flames to put his broken body to death. Then it was reborn from the ashes. However, now his fundamental essence couldn't sustain anymore, and the burning pain of the extreme young flames couldn't be endured by will, so he was at the end of his strength. He would step into the abyss with just one step. Hushi took out the gold needles and inserted them into Beastkin King's acupuncture points one by one. As expected, the body structure of the Beastkin King was very similar to that of the little golden dragon. His true form was probably also a type of dragon. Fortunately, she had treated little golden dragon, otherwise she really couldn't find his acupuncture points in a short time. Time passed by, and countless golden needles had been pierced into the unconscious Beastkin King's body. The Beastkins were all watching nervously, not even daring to take another breath. Even the most irritable Feng Yuan watched stiffly, for fear of disturbing Hushi. When the last golden needle was inserted, a dragon chant resounded in the space. Hushi's complexion changed slightly, and she backed off for a dozen meters like a cannonball. The needles that were originally inserted into Beastkin King's body seemed to be ejected with some kind of force. Beastkin King's body slowly floated up in the air. Red and blue lights began to radiate from his body. What is this going? King, how are you? King, are you okay? It was not the Beastkin King's answer that responded to the Beastkins, but the thundercloud that came from nowhere in the sky. Boom, boom. There were thunder and lightning flashing in the sky as if the end of the world was coming. At this moment, all the Beastkins screamed in shock. Under the cover of these thunderclouds, their panic and despair all turned into surprise and worry. They were surprised because these weren't ordinary thunderclouds, but the tribulation clouds when the beast-kin faced the tribulation. Now that the tribulation clouds appeared, it meant that their king was about to advance to rank 12 divine beast. They were worried that the tribulation of the divine beast was not to be taken lightly. Their king had just suffered such a serious injury. Could he still withstand the thunderclouds now? Hashi was also shocked. She didn't expect that the beast-kin king would actually be reborn from the ashes. He even gained great power from the extreme young flames. Hashi couldn't help admiring the beast-kin king's tenacity for enduring such pain that could kill him. She smiled and murmured silently, "Since it has come to this point, wouldn't it be a pity if you are killed by the tribulation clouds now? Then let me help you." Chapter 1437. Feng family patriarch. As she spoke, a green light ball flew toward the beast-kin king in the air without a sound. This was the wood's spiritual power purified by the circle of life. Although it was not as overpowered as the source of life, it was also the best repairing and nourishing thing. Coupled with the water and fire spiritual power possessed by the beast-kin king, after complementing each other, it would have an unexpected beneficial effect. No beast-kin noticed the existence of the green light ball. They only saw that after their king was struck by the first thunder, a dazzling green light suddenly radiated from his body. Where the green light covered, the withered vegetation was thriving again. Even the air seemed to emit a rich fragrance. The beastkins also felt that the wounds on their bodies had healed again. Their bodies were filled with endless power. King! 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 They knelt down and kowtowed in joy. Their voices were full of joy and admiration. This time, the blue-green light that appeared on Beast-kin King didn't just fill the magical beast forest like Hashi did at the beginning, but it rose directly into the sky and even echoed the thunderclouds. Therefore, such a change, whether it was the people in the magical beast forest or the people near the magical beast forest, they could clearly see it. Many people felt the traces of Wood's spiritual power, which also triggered the greed in their hearts. The Feng family on Wuliang Mountain was one of them. "Patriarch, why are you here?" "The Venerable, aren't you retreating?" "Why?" The master of the Feng family and the elders were watching the movement in the magical beast forest in bewilderment and shock. Then they suddenly heard the noise. When Feng Batian looked back, he was also startled. Not far from the forbidden area, a tall and thin white-bearded old man walked over quickly. It was the patriarch of their Feng family, Venerable Mu Hua. Venerable Mu Hua had reached the nascent soul stage perfect stage decades ago, and his pill refining technique had reached the great grandmaster level. No matter in terms of strength or medicinal pill support, Venerable Mu Hua was the pillar of Feng family. He was the most important existence for the Feng family to survive. A few years ago, Venerable Mu Hua began to retreat in order to reach the soul-splitting stage. He once said that if he could not break through the bottleneck, he would never leave the forbidden area. Why did Venerable Mu Hua the Venerable appear here today? There were no tribulation clouds when breaking through to the soul-splitting stage in the past few days, and the patriarch doesn't seem to have advanced. Why? Venerable Mu Hua ignored everyone's inquiries, but he locked his eyes firmly on the depths of the magical beast forest that was shrouded in the green light. His eyes were filled with scorching desires. "Batian, gather your people immediately and follow me into the magical beast forest." Feng Batian was full of surprise and doubt. He forgot about the green light. He wanted to ask what it was, but the patriarch's prestige made him dare not say more. He just bowed and said, "How many people does patriarch want?" Venerable Mu Hua squinted and said in a deep voice, "Gather all the people who are above the gold core stage, intermediate stage, and nascent soul stage. This is the moment of our Feng family's life and death. No matter what, we must get that thing." Feng Batian's face suddenly changed. Calling people who are above the gold core stage, intermediate stage, and nascent soul stage, that is almost 90% of Feng family's combat power. If they are lost in the magical beast forest, then Feng family will really be over this time. Chapter 1438. Greed. Feng Yunjing, standing next to Feng Batian, was taught by Venerable Mu Hua when he was young, so he was a little presumptuous when facing Venerable Mu Hua. He said, "The Venerable, what exactly is that thing you are talking about?" "Wood source," Venerable Mu Hua said slowly. His voice was calm and hoarse, but the fiery flames in his eyes seemed to burst out at any moment, As long as I have a wood source, let alone breaking through the soul-splitting stage, even creating hundreds of nascent soul stage cultivators is not a problem for our Feng family. As Venerable Mu Hua said that, his eyes fell on Feng Yunjing with burning with temptation. Even you Yunjing, as long as you have the wood source, you will definitely be able to break through to the soul-splitting stage within 10 years. Break through to the soul-splitting stage within 10 years. Feng Yunjing gasped. The shock on his face slowly turned into a greedy burning desire. Wood source? As long as I get this thing, I will be stronger than Nan Gongyu. I can take revenge for being randomly sent to the endless glacier that day, and I can imprison Shiyu by my side. Great. Great. Wood source, I want to get it. I must get it. Feng Baishan's eyes were also burning with desire. He exchanged a glance with the other elders. Then he turned around and quickly went to gather the people. Venerable Mu Hua clenched his fists tightly, and his heart was surging. I never expect that the wood source that even the upper realms have been searching for thousands of years will appear in Miluo continent. If I hadn't experienced the power of a virtual wood source in Siam continent, I would have missed it this time. Ha ha ha, perhaps, this is a blessing to our Feng family, so we can become the real ruler of unifying Miluo continent. Even our Feng family will have a place in Siam continent. In the magical beast forest, Golden Wolf fled like a dog among the tall trees. There was no figure behind him, no sound of footsteps, no sound of flying through the air, but Golden Wolf felt the hairs all over his body stand on end. An invisible fear clutched his mind, making him feel the despair and anger of being played with as a prey. This trip to the magical beast forest was originally planned perfectly. But who knows, accidents happened again and again. First, someone suddenly advanced with a perfect stage, the captured beastkin recovered, and the heavenly mulberry sacred tree grew again. And then such a boy with superb cultivation appeared. A mere low-rank martial artist from Miluo continent actually cultivates to the soul-splitting stage intermediate stage. And he even possesses the most terrifying dark element spiritual root. If I had known earlier, if I had known this would happen. Just as he was thinking, suddenly the sky was densely covered with tribulation thunderclouds. Amidst the thunder and lightning, the entire magical beast forest seemed to tremble violently. Golden Wolf looked up at the thunderclouds in horror. This is advancement. Is this the tribulation of the beastkin evolving into a divine beast? How can this be? That beastkin king is about to die. How could he suddenly advance? Soon, something that even stunned Golden Wolf happened. A green light suddenly soared into the sky. Then it enveloped half of the magical beast forest. Where Golden Wolf was located, he could still feel the vitality brought by the slight wood spiritual power. Wood source. Golden Wolf gasped. His voice was trembling. Although there is only a small amount, it is indeed the wood source. This Miluo continent actually has the wood source. Chapter 1439. I hope. It isn't you. This time, Golden Wolf was not calm at all. Originally, he planned to escape from the magical beast forest with his own strength. Then he would use the teleportation array to escape. The magical beast forest was different from other places. This was the territory of the beastkin. Except for the beastkin, other martial artists who used space technique would be torn to pieces by the space-time fissure. Golden Wolf took out an old compass. The compass was given to him by the Lord. It was the most important life-saving magic weapon. As long as he activated it, it could directly send him back to Siam continent. This disastrous defeat made him afraid to use the compass. Otherwise, even if he went back, the Lord would definitely punish him severely. But now it was different. He got the news of the wood source. As long as he brought this news back, spiritual power was poured into the compass. When the compass was about to light up, a cold and chilling murderous intent shrouded him. Golden Wolf was astounded. He was about to resist when he suddenly felt a chill in his neck and was directly strangled by someone. He opened his eyes wide and looked at the person who appeared in front of him out of thin air. It was a man in black with a stern face. Every inch of his body seemed to carry the indifference that no one should get close. He held Golden Wolf's throat with his hand. Golden Wolf was obviously a master at the soul-splitting stage later stage. But in his eyes, there was not even the slightest ripple as if he was looking at a lifeless stone. This person, Golden Wolf knew him. However, it wasn't Nan Gongyu who Golden Wolf thought was chasing him. But, you. Before Golden Wolf could finish speaking, a strange red bag suddenly appeared on the other hand of the man in black. As the hand that clutched Golden Wolf's neck flicked, the man in a black shirt threw Golden Wolf into the red bag. After putting away the bag, the man in black didn't leave immediately. Instead, he looked at the direction shrouded in a green light, frowning slightly. Wood source, you. I hope. It's not you. After only a few seconds, Nan Gongyu caught up, but he saw no one around. He raised his eyebrows. He smelled the smell of blood in the air, and there seemed to be a strange and familiar powerful aura. Tisk! Nan Gongyu curled his lips unhappily. I'm one step late. Someone got him before me. Looking at the direction covered by the green light and thunderclouds, Nan Gongyu no longer hesitated and rushed in the direction of Toad Jade Palace. It's just a prey. If it's gone, it's gone. For me, sheer safety is the most important. Hushi, who caused this commotion, was also very depressed. I just wanted to help the Beast-kin king who had exhausted his spiritual power to survive the tribulation. But I never expected that just a little bit of purified wood spiritual power would cause such a big commotion. However, Hushi could feel that the wood spiritual power emanating from the Beast-kin king seemed to be much thinner than the wood spiritual power in her body, and it was also tainted with the water spiritual power. Sheer, you are awake? Nan Gongyu's voice came from behind. Then she was quickly embraced into a broad embrace. Nan Gongyu is back. Hushi turned around in surprise. She was relieved to see that Nan Gongyu was safe and sound. Just now she was uneasy because of the movement caused by the wood spiritual power, but now seeing Nan Gongyu, all her worries were replaced by peace of mind and trust. Nan Gongyu glanced at the Beast-kin king floating in mid-air, lowered his head and asked Hushi with his eyes. Chapter 1440. Everything is up to my lady. Hushi coughed lowly and said with a guilty conscience. The Beast-kin king was originally burned by the flames of the jade fire toad. I helped him with golden needles, but I didn't expect to help him absorb the extreme young flames and caused a thunder tribulation. If he survived the thunder tribulation, he would be a true divine beast. Even Nan Gongyu was no match to him. Nan Gongyu felt that Hushi didn't tell everything, especially the green light that obviously contained a powerful wood spiritual power. He always felt that it had something to do with Hushi. But there were beast-kin everywhere at this moment, so he held back the desire to ask. Where's Jade Fire Toad? This was what Hushi cared most about. Nan Gongyu took Jade Fire Toad out of his arms. Before Jade Fire Toad had never been nourished, it belonged to the most young treasure in the world. Anything, including storage bags, could only be burned by it. After Nan Gongyu destroyed a storage bag and a bag of crystal stones, he had to keep it close to his body. Only the cold poison on his body could restrain the blazing flames of the Jade Fire Toad. Hushi wanted to reach out to touch Jade Fire Toad, but she was quickly stopped by Nan Gongyu. But even though Nan Gongyu's speed was so fast, Hushi's index fingertip was still a little red. Nan Gongyu's face was so unsightly that it was frightening, but the movement of grabbing Hushi's hand was very gentle. He gently sucked the red-hot index finger into his mouth. Hushi's face turned red all of a sudden. She looked around, only to see that many beastkins had noticed the movement here and looked over one after another. The original burning pain in the hand disappeared, replaced by a burst of coolness. Hushi quickly retracted her hand, only to see that the burn marks on it had disappeared, but it became wet. This guy. But immediately, Hushi's face changed slightly. She grabbed Nan Gongyu's hand and released spiritual power into it. Sure enough, a bone-chilling chill penetrated into her body, making her shiver uncontrollably. The cold poison has struck ahead of time. Why? After thinking for a moment, Hushi figured out the key to this. Nan Gongyu could grab Jade Fire Toad with bare hands because he had the cold poison in his body that was at the same level as the Jade Fire Toad. But also because of touching the extreme young flames, the cold poison that had been dormant was awakened. Just like rivals of the same level competing with each other, the cold poison was activated in advance. Hushi looked solemn. She said calmly, "It can't delay any longer. I will find a place to treat you right now." Of course, Nan Gongyu knew best about his own body. The cold poison in his body was spreading crazily. If there was no Jade Toad fire to suppress it, he would be completely unable to move in half an hour. But just as Hashi trusted him, he also trusted Hashi's medical skills and judgment unconditionally. Hearing this, he didn't feel worried or panicked at all. He just smiled and said, "Okay, everything is up to my lady." Hashi rolled her eyes at him. This guy can still joke at this time. They were about to leave, but they were stopped by the Beastkins. Hashi frowned and said, "You said that as long as I save the Beastkin King, the Jade Fire Toad will be mine. Are you going to renege?" "Absolutely not." The Beastkins shook their heads again and again, looking at Hashi with gratitude and admiration. "Miracle healer, she has great kindness to us. Let alone a mere Jade Fire Toad, except Heavenly Mulberry Sacred Tree, even if you want to take all of our treasures. We will never hesitate." Chapter 1441. Huge cost. Although they hated humans, they had heard from Li Yu that the human in front of them saved the Beastkins time and time again. She could be said to be the biggest benefactor of the Beastkins in the magical beast forest. Li Yu said on behalf of the other Beastkins, "Miracle healer she, if you don't mind, you can perform healing in the magical beast forest. Behind this forest, there is a cave. That place is very hidden. If you need us to protect, we can also." Hashi breathed a sigh of relief. She showed a gentle expression. "There is no need to guard us. Please take us to that cave." When she was treating Nan Gongyu, she would probably use with spiritual power, which couldn't be discovered by any human or beastkin. In the magical beast forest, thunderclouds were still densely covered, but the green light had disappeared without a trace. It could be said that the Feng family had paid a huge cost to get this wood source. Venerable Mu Hua took out the directional teleportation array, and teleported the people Feng Tianba had gathered to the depths of the magical beast forest in one go. The directional teleportation array was the top-level array in Miluo continent. The teleportation distance could reach thousands of kilometers, and the approximate landing point could be specified. However, it would cost tens of thousands of upper-grade crystal stones to activate the directional teleportation array, and it would also require nascent soul stage martial artists to overdraw their lifespan to activate it. So originally, the ancestors of the Feng family left this directional teleportation array to allow the family to escape in times of crisis. For the wood source, Venerable Mu Hua couldn't care much. If he was one step later and the vision disappeared, it would be extremely difficult to find the wood source. The sky was getting closer to dusk. Because of the thunderclouds, the forest looked dark, giving people a sense of oppression. Feng Yunjing led a dozen gold core stage martial artists and a nascent soul stage elder to shuttle in the forest, inspecting the surrounding suspicious phenomena little by little. Venerable Mu Hua and Feng Batian had already rushed to the direction where the tribulation thunderclouds gathered. Feng Yunjing and the others led their own teams to guard the surrounding areas. They searched for clues while blocking all possible escape routes of the wood source. From time to time, Feng Yunjing's gaze would look toward the direction where lightning struck. He also really wanted to go there to the wood source as soon as possible. If I can get the wood source myself. Feng Yunjing swallowed with unwillingness and greed in his eyes. "Young master, come and take a look. There seems to be something strange here." The subordinate's voice quickly brought Feng Yunjing back from his thoughts. A gold core stage martial artist discovered an extremely hidden cave. When they didn't get close, they might just treat this cave as an ordinary bush. However, when the martial artist looked closely for a moment out of curiosity, he felt a fiery aura rushing toward them. He had retreated as fast as he could, but a large piece of his hair was still scorched. Feng Yunjing also approached the cave, but what he felt was not the scorching heat, but the freezing cold that would freeze his breath. "What is inside?" he murmured suspiciously. "Is this where beastkins hide their treasures?" Thinking of this, Feng Yunjing's eyes lit up. A long sword transfigured in his hand, and he struck suddenly. The weeds that originally covered the cave made a piercing sound. Then they were uprooted by the sword blow. All eyes were on the cave. After seeing the scene in the cave clearly, Feng Yunjing's breath was stagnant. There was a trace of disbelief in his eyes. Chapter 1442. Fated encounter. Afterward, a smile was evoked on his face slowly. The smile became more and more wanton, more and more vicious. After the bushes were blown away, a spacious cave was revealed. But what appeared in the cave was not any beastkin treasure, but two people. The young handsome man's eyes were closed tightly. His body constantly exuded hot and cold aura alternately. His body trembled unconsciously. Obviously, he was in great pain. And behind the young man, a handsome young man only wearing thin clothes was putting his palms on the young man's back. A light green spiritual power slowly penetrated into the man's heart along his back. The young man's expression was dignified and anxious as if he had forgotten the whole world. His eyes were full of worries about the young man. Feng Yunjing recognized at just one glance that the young man was Nan Gongyu, and that handsome young man like a moon elf was none other than Shiyu disguised as a man. Of these two people, one was the man he dreamed of getting rid of and the other was the woman he dreamed of getting. Today, God really favors me and send these two people to me, and it is with this method, ha ha ha. At this moment, the elder walking with Feng Yunjing suddenly exclaimed, Yunjing, look at the green spiritual power circulating in that young man's hand. Does it look like the wood source? Feng Yunjing's heart suddenly constricted upon hearing this. Even the other Feng family's disciples stared straight at each other with eyes full of excitement and greed. After looking carefully, they could find that the air seemed to be filled with a vitality that was stronger than in other places. This kind of green spiritual power, even if it was not a wood source, must be extremely precious. Should we notify the patriarch immediately? The elder of the Feng family asked. Feng Yunjing swallowed and said decisively, The venerable and the others are busy, let's catch them first. After a pause, he looked at the elder with eyes full of temptation and suggestion and said faintly, Elder Lu, although the wood source is precious, it is not available to everyone in the Feng family. But if it is only the two of us find the wood source? The elder's eyes lit up. He immediately agreed to Feng Yunjing's suggestion. Not only because of the temptation of the wood source, but also because of the two people in the cave. Their condition didn't seem very good. Especially King of Hell, no matter how terrifying he was at the beginning, now he seemed to be on the verge of death. Feng Yunjing clenched the sword in his hand, walked slowly into the cave, stared at Shiyu who was wearing thin clothes. His eyes swept across her delicate face and radiant skin before softly saying, Shiyu, do you still remember how you escaped from my hands on the breaking spirit mountain? However, I also said that this was your last chance. This time, I will never let you escape from my grasp. The flame light on Nan Gongyu's body flickered, and the temperature in the air rose again. The faces of several gold core stage disciples were red, but to Feng Yunjing from nascent soul stage, this heat was nothing. Hushi frowned suddenly. She increased the output of the wood spiritual power again, and a hoarse voice came from her mouth. Nan Gongyu concentrates. Now is the most critical moment. Afterward, she shouted in a low voice, Little Golden Dragon. Chapter 1443. Vicious. As soon as she called out, Feng Yunjing felt a gust of wind blowing toward his face, making him take a step back involuntarily. In front of Hushi and Nan Gongyu, the little ones appeared. The little golden dragon hovered in the air and raised his voice, Boss, don't worry. We will definitely stop these guys. As he said that, his contemptuous and loathing eyes fell on Feng Yunjing. You really won't give up, will you? A piece of trash like you even dreams of touching my boss? I think your brain has been filled with too much shit. Little golden dragon, you're wrong. Little Egg said angrily with his little hooves on his waist. This kind of idiot who asked for humiliation repeatedly and doesn't even know how to write the word ugly. Does he have any brains? Chirp chirp chip. It's none of my business. Why even I have to fight? And who are these people? Their smell is so stinky. They should all be burned to death, so as not to pollute the air. Feng Yunjing's face was as gloomy as water. It wasn't the first time he was insulted by these little beasts. As early as breaking Spirit Mountain, he wanted to tear these beasts into pieces. This time, I will never give them another chance to be alive. Just a bunch of beasts. I'll make you all speechless in no time. The long sword in Feng Yunjing's hand suddenly floated up. At the same time, the black flag he had repaired rose up into the sky. Feng Yunjing had fought with these spiritual pets of Shiyu. Although he knew that their abilities were very special, he didn't pay them in his eyes at all. But after fighting, Feng Yunjing discovered that the cultivation of these little beasts had improved a lot in just half a year. And the few little beasts had cooperated very tacitly now. Little Dumb Cow was defending, Little Golden Dragon was attacking, Shaoli was in charge of field control, Little Red Bird was flying around to harass them, and Little Egg was responsible for replenishing their beastkin power. 2 nascent soul stage plus a dozen gold core stage were in a stalemate when facing these 5 spiritual pets. Feng Yunjing glanced at Nan Gongyu at the side, wondering if he was having an illusion. Nan Gongyu's erratic aura seemed to have stabilized a lot. If this gets dragged like this, Nan Gongyu's injury will be healed by Shi Yu. By then, what chance would we have to survive? A glint of sternness flashed in Feng Yunjing's eyes. He suddenly sneered and said, Shi Yu, do you still remember the kind of intimate contact I had with you in Breaking Spirit Mountain? I still remember the delicate fragrance emanating from your body. There has never been a woman who can haunt me so much. When I think of being able to ravage you under my body, I'm so excited. For more than half a year, every night I dream of you lying in my arms. Boom! There was a loud noise. The fiery aura that had stabilized on Nan Gongyu's body suddenly tumbled like a storm. Nan Gongyu's originally closed eyes suddenly opened. Hushi let out a muffled grunt, and she was ejected away by a huge force. Immediately afterward, a crimson flame burst out from Nan Gongyu's dantian, surging into her body. Fiery, burning, incineration. The pain of the soul being scorched caused Hushi to groan. Afterward, the wood spiritual power in her body instantly wrapped up the heat source as if it was alive. It devoured and melted the heat bit by bit. When Hushi fell to the ground, Nan Gongyu had already stood up. Chapter 1444. Regret. It was just that something was completely wrong to him. His one eye was blue and the other eye was fiery red, staring firmly at Feng Yunjing. His body, with the nose as the middle, was half burning and half condensing into froths. Feng Yunjing and the others were stunned. An inexplicable fear surged in their minds. They wanted to scream and run away. But their feet seemed to be fixed by something. They couldn't move at all. Not to mention the people of the Feng family. Even Little Egg and a few other little ones were stunned by this scene. Seeing Hushi being ejected, Little Egg wanted to rush over, but seeing Nan Gongyu's appearance, he trembled all over. Daddy. Daddy looks so scary. Little Egg is so scared. Woo woo. Mother. Little Red Bird, who was the least courageous, fled into the void in panic and got into Xiao Qi's arms. Really scary. Really terrible aura. Is he a god or a demon? What is that aura? Why do I feel the despair of destruction? Nan Gongyu stretched out his flaming hand and grabbed Feng Yunjing's head. Feng Yunjing's pupils constricted. At that very moment, he gathered his strength miraculously, let out a short scream, and grabbed a disciple to block for him. With the sizzling sound, the Feng family's disciple was burned into ashes without even making a sound. Nan Gongyu's other hand grabbed at another Feng family's disciple. Crack! His warm body was frozen into ice cubes in the blink of an eye. Then he shattered. Just in the blink of an eye, 2 martial artists at the peak of the gold core stage were erased. Feng Yunjing regretted it. So regretful that his intestines turned green. He originally wanted to provoke Nan Gongyu so that he would go crazy and perhaps die due to the heavy injury. I didn't expect him to go crazy, and even become so powerful. The Feng family's disciples were reduced to ashes one by one in the hands of Nan Gongyu. Each of them died so easily. Like what Nan Gongyu killed was not a high-rank martial artist but an insignificant ant. Elder Lu trembled all over. He suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Run, run now. Inform the great elder." Feng Yunjing didn't want to fight for any wood source at this time. He just hoped to escape quickly. Hushi frowned and woke up from the endless pain. The first thing she saw was Nan Gongyu, who had completely lost his mind and changed beyond recognition. In the eyes of others, Nan Gongyu was only scary and invincible, but Hushi only took one look, and her heart skipped a beat. Nan Gongyu's cold poison was fully stimulated. It was about to devour the lingering flames of the jade fire toad bit by bit. Moreover, with Nan Gongyu's attack, the cold attribute of the cold poison would become stronger and stronger. The moment the extreme young flame was completely devoured, Nan Gongyu would be killed by the cold poison. Hushi sat up abruptly and shot the silver needles in his hand toward Nan Gongyu. However, before the silver needles even got close to Nan Gongyu's body, they were already reduced to ashes. Hushi tried to call out a few more times, but Nan Gongyu couldn't hear her voice at all. Feng Yunjing and the others had just escaped to the entrance of the cave, but the crackling sound suddenly came from the entrance. An ice wall quickly condensed, blocking their way. The exit was blocked, and there was death behind. Chapter 1445. Bone-piercing pain. Elder Lu's face was distorted. His eyes were filled with fear and madness. He suddenly roared, "Since you won't give us a way out, I will fight to the death with you. We are both at the nascent soul stage. I don't believe you can be any stronger than us." A large amount of spiritual power gushed out from Elder Lu. At the same time, the soil in the cave also began to shake. The next moment, a large piece of rock raised from the ground, enveloping Nan Gongyu in it. Elder Lu had already pierced his sword toward Nan Gongyu's heart. The long sword pierced into Nan Gongyu's body, and Elder Lu's face showed ecstasy. But the next moment, the ecstasy turned into panic. There was an icy breath from the grade 9 sword in his hand. The sharp blade slowly condensed with frost, then it turned into powder inch by inch. The frost continued to spread onto his body. The last scene Elder Lu saw was a face that was half flaming and half frosty, and the red and blue eyes. They looked indifferent and cruel, as if he was looking at a dead man. Ah! Elder Lu's death made the people of the Feng family collapse. Nan Gongyu did not stop, and he walked toward Feng Yunjing. Feng Yunjing was terrified. He was retreating in despair, and he suddenly stumbled and fell to the ground. "Don't come over! Don't come over! Nan Gongyu, if you kill me, my father and the Venerable will not let you go." The disciples of the Feng family swung their swords desperately to resist. The fear in their eyes had turned into despair. In their eyes, Nan Gongyu was the god of death from hell, who could kill them at will. But only Hushi present knew how bad Nan Gongyu's situation was at the moment. The flames on his body had become increasingly dimmer. Most of his body had been covered in frost, and his originally red pupil had also turned blue. Just a little longer and just a few more attacks, Nan Gongyu's Dantian and fundamental essence would be completely swallowed by the cold poison. Nan Gongyu will die? No. I will never allow this to happen. A hint of determination flashed in Hushi's eyes. She rushed toward Nan Gongyu without hesitation. "Mom, don't." "Boss, you are crazy. You will be frozen into ice crystals." The little ones were going crazy, desperately trying to stop Hushi, but it was too late. Hushi threw herself behind Nan Gongyu and hugged him tightly from behind. The bone-piercing cold mixed with scorching heat came from Nan Gongyu's body. Hushi could almost hear the sound of his own blood being frozen, and the sound of his flesh being scorched. "It hurts, it hurts. It hurts so badly. However, if I let go, Nan Gongyu will die. How can I allow it?" "Nan Gongyu, stop." Hushi shouted hoarsely behind him. "If this keeps on, you will die. I don't want to lose you, do you hear me?" Nan Gongyu's original forward movement stagnated slightly, and the cold poison that was spreading seemed to have slowed down a little. A faint hoarse voice came from the cave. "Sheer. I want to kill him. Nan Gongyu." Hushi gritted her teeth. "Trust me, let me handle it, okay? I will kill him and never let him have the slightest chance to humiliate me. You trust me." Chapter 1446. Arrogant and smug. The ice-blue pupils flickered for a while. Then Nan Gongyu closed his eyes and removed the spiritual power shield on his body. Hushi made a prompt decision, took out the silver needles, and pierced several big acupuncture points of Nan Gongyu. Almost at the moment when the silver needles entered his body, Nan Gongyu's body shook and he passed out. "Mom, Mom, are you all right?" Little Egg threw himself into Hushi's arms, touched the burn marks on Hushi's body, and cried very sadly. Hushi let out a breath, smiled and comforted. "Little Egg, don't worry, when I clean the wound with Circle of Life tomorrow, it will heal. Don't worry, I'm fine." Now the wood spiritual power that Circle of Life could purify had been completely exhausted while healing Nan Gongyu. At the beginning, Jade Fire Toad refused to enter Nan Gongyu's body no matter what. It was Hushi who used the wood spiritual power purified by the Circle of Life to guide it bit by bit with a difficulty. Finally, she managed to slowly merge the Jade Fire Toad with Nan Gongyu's Dantian. Who knew that this hidden cave would be found by Feng Yunjing? Everything fell short. Jade Fire Toad was absorbed by her body, and Nan Gongyu's cold poison was triggered completely. His life was on the verge of dying. All of this was caused by Feng Yunjing and his people. Ha, ha ha, ha 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 ha. Feng Yunjing's laughter suddenly came from behind. From the intermittent and shocked at the beginning, he became arrogant and smug later. He thought he was going to die, but he didn't expect Shiyu to bring Nan Gongyu down herself. Haha, Shiyu, are you interested in me? That's why you took action against Nan Gongyu? Feng Yunjing stood up from the ground, patted the dust on his clothes, and turned back into the aloof young master of the Feng family in an instant. His burning eyes were fixed on Hushi. Shiyu, I will never forget your love for me. Hee, as long as you kill Nan Gongyu now, I promise that the position of young madam of the Feng family is definitely yours. Feng Yunjing had already confirmed that Shiyu attacked Nan Gongyu was because she had fallen for him. Otherwise, why would she save me from Nan Gongyu's hands? Since Shiyu has such affection for him, I will not let her down. The precious wood source is also mine too. Haha. With the help of the little golden dragon, Hushi moved the unconscious Nan Gongyu to a clean rock. Then she slowly got up and looked at Feng Yunjing not far away. The cave was still blocked by a thick layer of ice, but without Nan Gongyu's spiritual power containing cold poison, the ice layer was just ordinary ice. A nascent soul stage martial artist could blast it away with a sword. So at this time, Feng Yunjing didn't want to run away at all. Instead, he showed a determined smile and walked toward Hushi. Hushi stretched out her slender fingers, and the Li Shui sword exuding colorful light slowly appeared in her hand. Feng Yunjing looked at the girl in front, and he suddenly felt in a trance. The willow eyebrows were dark without painting, the lips were red without cinnabar, and the bright phoenix pupils had a breathtaking beauty under the light of the ice. Shiyu, this is the woman I long for. This is the first woman I dream of getting. Today, I finally got her completely. If she still wants to resist, I will also get her first. Feng Yunjing squinted with a hint of ruthlessness. Hushi raised the Li Shui sword, and it burst into colorful light. Chapter 1447. The death of Feng Yunjing. The sword flew to the top of the cave, then thousands of swords rained down instantly. Feng Yunjing had seen this move before. Flying flower sword rain. Although it was somewhat interesting, it did not pose a threat to him at all. Swoosh! Thousands of sword lights suddenly fell like rain. The young girl on the opposite smirked. The already delicate face was instantly radiant and beautiful. A bad premonition suddenly surged in Feng Yunjing's heart. The next moment, he heard the miserable screams of the remaining Feng family's disciples around him. He suddenly turned his head to look. Then he widened his eyes in horror and disbelief. He saw bleeding corpses being pinned to the ground. Their chests had big holes, and their hearts burst. Every corpse was full of disbelief, and their hands were still held stiffly in the air as if trying to grab the sword that pierced them. These are the martial artists at the gold core stage? All of them are the martial artists at the peak of the gold core stage. Li Shui's sword circled around and returned to Hushi's hands. The leisurely sneering eyes fell on Feng Yunjing's shocked face, and a clear voice sounded slowly in the cave. Feng Yunjing, as I said, one day, I will repay the humiliation you did on me on the Breaking Spirit Mountain. So, if you are dead under the others, how can I be happy? You and Feng Lianying have to die. Of course, you are all going to die by my hands. Feng Yunjing staggered back. The young girl in front of him obviously looked no more than 17 years old. She looked so slender and so weak, but he felt the fear of extinction from her. Shiyu, I just like you. I just want you to be my woman. I even promised you the position of young madam of the Feng family. How could you kill me? How could you? The Li Shui sword whistled toward him and obliquely slashed through Feng Yunjing's Adam's apple. In an instant, blood spurted out, and the panic shout stopped abruptly. Feng Yunjing didn't realize until his death that he actually fell for this woman whom he had been playing with in his hands all this time. He was not reconciled to die like this. After she dealt with Feng Yunjing, she hurried back to check on Nan Gongyu's situation. If it wasn't for the special situation now, she wouldn't let him die so easily. Near Toad Jade Palace, Feng Tianba, who was guarding the periphery and waiting for instructions from Venerable Mu Hua, suddenly felt a palpitation in his heart as if his heart had been grabbed by something. It caused him unspeakable panic. Immediately afterward, there was a pop sound from his chest. Feng Tianba quickly took out the thing. His eyes turned red after seeing it. That was the vital jade pendant of his only son, Feng Yunjing. When the vital jade pendant was broken, It meant that Feng Yunjing was dead. Who killed Yunjing? Who killed my proudest son whom I spent the most effort to train? Feng Beishan's body kept trembling. His eyes stared in one direction. The hatred and anger in his eyes surged like a tide. Wood's source and the responsibility of the master of the Feng family were completely forgotten by him at this moment. Feng Tianba crushed the shattered jade pendant into powder, then sprinkled it into the air. The powder of the jade pendant flew toward a certain direction automatically. Come with me. Feng Batian greeted all his subordinates and flew towards the direction where the powder was flying. Chapter 1448. Scary man. At this time, Hashi also fell into a state of anxiety. The cold poison on Nangong Yu's body became more and more fierce, and the extreme young flames of the jade fire toad that he had absorbed were swallowed up by the cold poison little by little. Even because of the cold poison, no one except her could resist the invasion of the cold. The little ones had long been hiding in the void, not daring to show up. Hashi tried to mobilize the jade fire toad in her body, but jade fire toad seemed to disappear completely. No matter how she used divine sense to look inside and how she channeled her spiritual power, she couldn't even feel a trace of the toad. If this continues, Nangong Yu will definitely die. What to do? What to do? Hashi took a deep breath to calm herself down. Now she had no choice but to channel her own fire spiritual power in her body to see if she could relieve the spread of the cold poison. The pure fire spiritual power circulated in her dantian for one around and slowly condensed in her palm. Hashi didn't realize that when she was channeling the fire spiritual power, she also channeled the circle of life out of habit. The fire spiritual power entered Nangong Yu's body and was instantly swallowed by the cold poison without any suspense. To make matters worse, the cold poison in Nangong Yu's body seemed to have a suction force. When it came into contact with the fire spiritual power, it automatically drained a large amount. Hashi gritted her teeth and continued to channel fire spiritual power. Her face turned pale bit by bit. Her originally rosy lips cracked and oozed blood. Just when Hashi felt that her dantian was getting more and more exhausted, and her strength was slowly fading, Nangong Yu, who was originally in a coma, opened his eyes suddenly. The blue eyes that were originally infected by the cold poison were now deep and dark like the abyss. There was no light in them at all. At the same time, there was the sound of ice shattering at the entrance of the cave. Li Yu was still worried about Shi Yu's safety in Toad Jade Palace. The Beastkins only thought that Shi Yu rescued them in the Mojing Pavilion, and she later rescued the Beastkin King with medical skills. But they didn't know that the wood source that suddenly emanated from Beastkin King also came from Shi Yu. It could be said that Shi Yu had the grace of rebuilding the Beastkin clan. After Shi Yu and that scary man left, Li Yu considered for a long time, and she finally turned into Yumin Bird and quietly came near the cave. That's right, Li Yu felt that man named Nangong Yu, who was Shi Yu's partner, was scary. There was a terrifying coercion on her body, as well as an aura that was like the death that made both human and beastkin tremble. Li Yu was very afraid that Shi Yu would get hurt when she was treating the man named Nangong Yu. However, even Li Yu had already thought about the horror of Nangong Yu many times in her mind. When she saw the scene in front of it, she still couldn't help being frightened until her feather stood up. The cave in front of her was still a place Li Yu was familiar with. She and brother Fengshan found this place by chance. Many beastkins couldn't discover it. However, this familiar place was completely covered in blood and severed limbs. The strong smell of blood spread throughout the entire. And even the flowers and plants beside withered because of being contaminated with too much evil aura. Standing in this pool of blood was a person in a black robe with an extraordinary demeanor, but he was terrifying like a demon from hell. Nangong Yu. Li Yu saw Shi Yu sitting cross-legged in a corner of the cave. At this moment, the bloody man who had killed everyone was walking toward Shi Yu, her savior, step by step. Chapter 1449. 10,000 years old cold Jade. Li Yu was still terrified, but she turned into a human form without hesitation and rushed to Shi Yu's side. Sister Shi Yu, hurry up and leave this place with me. It's so dangerous here. I will turn into a bird, and I will take you out immediately. As Li Yu spoke, she transformed into the Yu Min bird that was 10 times bigger than before. The wings could almost fill the entire cave, and the wind and sand mixed with blood filled the sky. The claws quickly grabbed Hushy's shoulders and flew out of the cave. Hushy woke up from the meditation, cursed in her mind, and raised her voice as much as possible. "Li Yu, put me down!" All these happened in the blink of an eye. The cave entrance sealed by Nangong Yuyue's ice was broken, and Feng Tianba led his people in. Seeing Feng Yunjing's body, Feng Tianba nearly went mad. He attacked Nangong Yu and Hushy in a desperate manner. At that time, Hushy was absorbed by Nangong Yu most of the spiritual power. The whole is already at the end of its strength. As they were about to be slaughtered by Feng Tianba, Nangong Yu suddenly woke up. This woke up was completely different from when he slaughtered Elder Lu and the disciples of the Feng family just now. Hushy's current strength was close to the late stage of nascent soul, so she could clearly feel that Nangong Yu's strength at this time had far exceeded the soul-splitting stage. The 3 nascent soul stage elders and a dozen gold core stage brought by Feng Tianba were killed in a few simple moves. Many people were torn to pieces by Nangong Yu across the distance. Their internal organs, limbs and blood sprayed all over the ground. At the last moment of death, Feng Tianba couldn't believe that he, the master of the Feng family, would die like this. And the one who killed him was Nangong Yu, whom he looked down upon and thought he had cheated for 20 years. As soon as Hushy uttered the words, Nangong Yu made a move. Yu Min bird was the fastest among birds, especially the instantaneous burst speed. However, just as Li Yu grabbed Hushy and was about to leave the cave, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in his 2 wings. Then she involuntarily changed into a human form and fell heavily to the ground. Nangong Yu's eyes were gloomy and black. He looked at her coldly as if looking at a lifeless object. "Whoever wants to take her away, die." "Nangong Yu, wait." Hushy rushed over and held Nangong Yu's raised hand. She turned around sharply and sternly said to Li Yu, "Get out of here immediately. Seal the entrance and don't let anyone come in again." But, Shi Yu, he is so scary," Hushy frowned. "Little golden dragon." The little golden dragon in the void rushed out quickly, grabbed Li Yu and moved out of the cave. At the same time, he cast a spell to lift the ground to seal the entrance, leaving only a narrow gap. The cave was instantly darkened. Hushy felt the frosty chill on Nangong Yu's body. It had reached at least -40 degrees. She shivered and grabbed his hand. "Nangong Yu, you must immediately." Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed to the ground by a huge force. Her lips were blocked in an instant, and the soft and slippery tongue with a cold breath forcefully pried open her lips and teeth, occupying all her breathing. Hushy took a breath. She felt as if she was holding a popsicle in her mouth, and her body was pressed by a 10,000 years old cold jade. Chapter 1450. It doesn't seem to be him. She stretched out and pushed the man away. "Nangong Yu, what's happening to you?" The next moment, she heard a tearing sound. Half of her clothes were torn off. Her naked skin felt a more bone-chilling chill. Hushy shivered. Her body felt chilly. In the darkness, she raised her head and met those dark eyes, which were darker than the night. She had a creepy feeling in her heart. The man in front of him was clearly Nangong Yu, but it didn't seem to be him. Hushy was terrified by the unfamiliar coercion. She instinctively wanted to struggle and scream. However, the cold hands had already restrained all her movements. The rough palms with thin calluses were groping and kneading her smooth and jade-like skin. There was an obvious domineering and possessive desire. "Nangong Yu." Hushy's hoarse calling sounded so abrupt and obvious in the darkness. The originally dark eyes suddenly flickered, and Nangong Yu's eyes showed a hint of struggle. The eyes were stained with ice blue color. Sheer. I'm cold." The hoarse voice was full of uneasiness and loneliness. "Don't leave me, Sheer. Don't leave me alone." Hushy seemed to be stabbed by something in the heart, and she stretched out to hug the man's cold body. The water light in her eyes was faintly visible. The cold poison was triggered and Nangong Yu's life was at stake, but she couldn't do anything. "Jade fire toad, the jade fire toad that I finally found, why did it fall short? My medical skills can obviously save so many people, but why can't I save the man loved the most?" Desperate anger surged in Hushy's heart. She hugged the man's cold body tightly as if she had endless grievances and unwillingness. She didn't realize that there was a faint red light emitting from her body with a warm temperature. And Nangong Yu seemed to have suddenly found some way to save himself, and he suddenly hugged the soft body of the girl under him. A messy and rough kiss landed on Hushy's neck. his cold body desperately looking for a source of warmth. The sharp teeth bit the delicate skin on the neck, and the warm and sweet liquid poured into the tip of the tongue. Nangong Yu's body stiffened suddenly. At the moment the blood flowed down his throat, he felt the long-lost warmth. He seemed to have finally found the bond that could protect him for a lifetime. It was as if the cold poison that had tortured him for more than a dozen years had suddenly disappeared without a trace. It also seemed that he had obtained everything he desired most in the world. In the silent night, only the sound of sucking blood remained. The moment Hushi's skin was torn by the bite, her consciousness felt chaotic. Her eyes were heavy and could no longer be opened. Finally, she fell asleep. In the dark night, Nangong Yu propped up his body and held the unconscious girl tightly in his arms. Even if it was pitch black, he could clearly see the girl's long eyelashes hanging down. The eyelashes were stained with crystal water droplets. Even in the dark, the soft white skin exuded a fascinating shimmer. I obviously hug her in my arms, but it isn't enough, far from enough. I want more. I want to own such a wonderful person forever. I will never let her leave my side. The scorching palms covered the girl's smooth skin, wanting to devour her desperately. But there was a voice in his heart that said, "No, not now." Nangong Yu lowered his head and hugged the girl tightly into his arms. His heavy and tired eyes were slowly closed, but his hands did not let go at all. They tightly guarded like a giant dragon guarding his treasure, not allowing anyone to covet. Find out what happens next by getting early access to chapters. Please do check out the community goals as well. Thanks for the support. Click here to access our Patreon page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1451. Ferocious Smile. The Beastkins were nervously watching the advancement of the Beastkin King. No one noticed that the misty smoke spread silently in Toad Jade Palace. When Beastkin noticed, they couldn't hold on any longer and fell to the ground one by one. People of the Feng family came out of their hiding places laughing, looking at Venerable Mu Hua with admiration and awe. This was their patriarch. The alchemy master who was 1 foot stepped into the soul-splitting stage, Venerable Mu Hua. Venerable Mu Hua, you are so powerful. Even the rank 9 Beastkin can't resist your drug. Venerable Mu Hua stroked his beard and said with a leisurely smile, "My soul-enchanting smoke is an ancient prescription from the upper realm. Not to mention Beastkin, even the soul-splitting stage martial artists can't resist it. The magical beast forest is indeed terrifying and unfathomable." Venerable Mu Hua glanced around and smiled with contempt in his eyes, but only because of the rank 11 Beastkin who is advancing, and the heavenly mulberry sacred tree's protection. But now the demi-divine beast has lost its combat effectiveness and the heavenly mulberry sacred tree has been damaged. The protection range has shrunk. Do you think these little beastkins can pose a threat to us humans? Ha ha ha. One of the elders of the Feng family laughed. In terms of strength, these beastkins' cultivation is of course higher than ours, but in terms of shrewdness, these beastkins are simply stupid and vulnerable. Seeing that these beastkin were easily knocked out, the great-grand elder of the Feng family had a bad premonition for some reason. But since Venerable Mu Hua said that it was fine, he swallowed the words that came to his lips. The great-grand elder bowed and said, "The Venerable, what should we do with these beastkin? Should we kill them on the spot?" Venerable Mu Hua narrowed his eyes slightly, and a flash of burning greed flashed in his eyes. "No, someone above wants these beastkins, and the price is very high. You all control these beastkins, but you must ensure that they have no ability to resist. I'll deal with them later." Ensure that they could not resist? That was to cut off the hands and feet and even peel their skin and sever their tendons. Other methods were not necessarily safe for the beastkins with powerful physique. This was obviously an extremely cruel method, but it was as simple as killing a chicken for the people of the Feng family and Golden Wolf. The members of the Feng family responded quickly, and Venerable Mu Hua looked at the man in a red robe above. His eyes flashed, and his body trembled excitedly. "This is what I want. The wood source aura emanates from this rank 11 beastkin. At usual times, I can't deal with this beastkin. But at this moment, this beastkin is advancing, which is the weakest period. As long as I kill this beast now, the wood source will be mine. Ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Venerable Mu Hua didn't hesitate any longer. He soared into the air and flew straight toward Venerable Mu Hua. His palm had transfigured a weapon that looked like a sword but not a sword. A flat and long sword, but with serrated edges on both sides. If this sword penetrated into a person's body, it could put out all the internal organs when drawing out. Moreover, the blade was smeared with poison. Anyone who was stabbed by this sword, no matter if it was a human or a beast-kin, it would die a miserable death. A ferocious smile appeared on Venerable Mu Hua's face. The wrinkles that usually disappeared because of his solemnity and dignity now appeared on his face like ugly reptiles. Find out what happens next by getting early access to chapters. Please do check out the community goals as well. Thanks for the support. Click here to access our Patreon page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1452. The consequence of self-righteousness. I'm already hundreds of years old. If I still don't break through, my lifespan will soon come to an end. But I haven't enjoyed enough of the wonderful taste of power. How can I be willing to die of old age? However, it is different with Wood Source. I will definitely break through and return to my youth. At that time, let alone Miluo continent, I will even have a place in the Siam continent. The long sword full of barbs stabbed fiercely at the beast-kin king whose eyes were closing. Venerable Mu Hua smirked, waiting for the pleasure of splattering blood and flesh. But the next moment, he met a pair of mocking eyes. The sharp sword tip stopped half an inch away from beast-kin king's heart as if it had encountered some resistance. Venerable Mu Hua's eyes widened. A trace of unbelievable horror quickly passed through his mind. He raised his head and looked up, only to see that dusk was approaching, but the thunderclouds in the sky had dissipated at some point. The lightning and thunder just now was gone like a dream. Ah! The terrified screams of the disciples of the Feng family came from below. When Venerable Mu Hua looked down, he saw those beastkins who were unconscious just now unexpectedly woke up. They were slaughtering the disciples of the Feng family one by one with sinister smiles. Venerable Mu Hua only felt that his breathing seemed to be stagnant. He stared at the beast-kin king stiffly. He wanted to withdraw his long sword, but found that he couldn't move a single bit. You lied to me. You have already completed the thunder tribulation? The young man in a red robe stretched out his slender white hand and grabbed the long sword full of barbs. With just a light force, Venerable Mu Hua's sword was snatched away by him. The beast-kin king sneered slightly, but there was a ferocious hint in his eyes. Even if you humans are despicable, do you think we will fall for the same method successively? Hee, you really think we beastkins are fools? Since you are all so self-righteous and think that you can benefit from us beastkins, then taste the consequence of your self-righteousness. As soon as he finished, that slender white hand suddenly turned into an ice-blue claw that resembled a dragon claw. With a puff, it pierced through Venerable Mu Hua's heart. Below, the toad beastkin surnamed Pang turned into a huge toad, crushing a Feng family's disciples into meat paste. Then he turned into the human form again, wiped the blood splattered on his mouth, and sneered. Fortunately, Miracle Healer, she left some medicine for us before he left. These human beings think their drugs are so powerful, but compared to Miracle Healer they are still far worse. At this time, the disciples of the Feng family also saw Venerable Mu Hua, whose heart had been pierced by the beast-kin king, in mid-air. At this moment, the luck and fear in their minds turned into horrific despair. They screamed and fled in all directions. Even the respected elders of the Feng family were the same. At this time, no one laughed at the stupidity of the beastkins, and no one coveted the wood source. When Toad Jade Palace and the mysterious cave were in dire straits, the people of Miracle Healer Academy were still waiting anxiously and panicked. The elders of the Doctors Association had been tied up one by one with natural silk. Lu Jishi and several Pioneer Branch students who had fought against Shi Yu were also restrained. Lu Jishi was still in a coma, so she couldn't explain for herself, but those in the Pioneer Branch were not reconciled. Find out what happens next by getting early access to chapters. Please do check out the community goals as well. Thanks for the support. Click here to access our Patreon page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1453. Scared Witless. We are also students of Miracle Healer Academy, and Shiyu is also a student of Miracle Healer Academy. How can you treat us like that? A beautiful girl among them said proudly. You guys better let me go. I just saw the unique contact signal of our Feng family. That can only be used by the master or elder. The people of our Feng family are in the magical beast forest now. Perhaps the thunderclouds and abnormalities deep in the forest were also caused by our Feng family. When the time comes, the elders of our Feng family will not let you go if they know you treat me like this. This girl was also a talented and intelligent disciple of the Feng family. Although she was not as famous as Feng Lianying, she was actually more talented. She was carefully cultivated by the great elder of the Feng family. The elders of the Doctors' Association were already desperate, but when they heard the girl's words, they all beamed with joy. The Feng family and the Doctors' Association were in a close relationship. If the big shots of the Feng family really came to the magical beast forest, then even the Miracle Healer Academy couldn't deal with them casually, let alone a mere Shiyu. Several elders of Miracle Healer Academy looked at each other with a bit of hesitation. After losing Luli's sect, Feng family's strength had been reduced a lot, and their prestige was not as good as before. But a lean camel is bigger than a horse. If the Feng family really came to the magical beast forest with all their forces, Miracle Healer Academy would definitely suffer heavy losses in a fight with them. Just as they were hesitating, several figures suddenly rushed in this direction. There were also hoarse and excited cries for help and a strong smell of blood. The people of Miracle Healer Academy looked at the source of the sound. When the girl surnamed Feng from the Pioneer branch saw the appearance of the people, she immediately exclaimed, "That's the third elder and ninth elder." Afterward, she was immediately overjoyed. See? Those are the elders of our Feng family, and they are all at the nascent soul stage. If you are sensible, release me now. Otherwise, when my Feng family's large force arrives, they will never let you go. Before the girl finished speaking, several black shadows flashed behind her suddenly. Afterward, the people of Miracle Healer Academy watched one elder of the Feng family, a martial artist at the nascent soul stage, being torn in half by the shoulders. Blood and internal organs splattered. One claw grabbed the heart and swallowed it. The people of Miracle Healer Academy stared blankly at this scene. They couldn't believe their eyes. Help me! Help me! It's Beastkin. Hurry up! Another elder of the Feng family screamed desperately and fled in their direction. However, before running a few steps, he was grabbed by another Beastkin again. His body was also torn apart, and his heart and dantian were swallowed. For a while, there was silence in the dark forest. Everyone held their breath. Seeing the Beastkins slowly approaching and the bloodstain on their mouths, they were almost scared out of their wits. Zhang Shouyue also looked solemn, blocking all the people of the Huang medical branch behind him. Beastkins, a lot of Beastkins, and almost all of them are above rank 7. There are even rank 8 and 9 magical beasts hidden around. Rank 7 Beastkin can fight against the martial artists at the intermediate stage and later stage of the nascent soul stage. What about rank 8 and 9? Zhang Shouyue couldn't imagine that if these Beastkins wanted to attack them, how many of his students and elders would escape alive. Find out what happens next by getting early access to chapters. Please do check out the community goals as well. Thanks for the support. Click here to access our Patreon page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.